Welcome everyone to this wonderful event. Welcome Stephanie from West Palm Beach, formerly NYC. Thank you for being our, awesome guest for today. We're really looking forward to, hearing what you have to say. But thank you for everyone for attending. If this is your first event or this is your, 10th event, thank you for supporting us and thank you for joining for your first time or your 10th time. We appreciate everyone taking the time out and sharing your experience with us. And I think this is, the important thing is networking, which, it's a little hard to do via Zoom, but, I think it's still important. And I think we should still continue doing it via whether it's remote or hopefully back in person soon. But this event is brought to you by BTGNY, which stands for Business and Technology of Greater New York. The purpose of our event is to really engage business and technology leaders of Greater New York to discuss their management and technology best practices and opportunities, from all different industries. So we have a good, wealth of knowledge. I just want to say a little shout out to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to have these events. And hopefully when we go back into in person, we will have some goodies from these sponsors that we can share. So first sponsor would be X Matters. X Matters has been a loyal sponsor of BTGNY. Also Brooklyn Winery. We've had the luxury of having being able to share their wines with our members, as well as Elementary Brewing. I believe based out of
Hackensack, New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey. So thank you for continuing to support us and sponsoring us through this past year and even before. So without further ado, also just a quick
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping. That's the word I'm looking for. We'd love to take questions during the event to make it more interactive. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Just use the chat function in Zoom at the bottom of the screen, and we'll make sure we'll address them live immediately following the Fireside chat. So with that said, let's start the Fireside chat, and I'm going to pass it over to our moderator, Deepak.
All right, thank you, Arwin. It's good to be here. Wow, I can't believe we've done 37 events. So yeah, like I mentioned, Deepak Alwani, I'm a founder of Business and Technology of Greater New York. I know some folks here, so it's good to have you. And yeah, hopefully we can do something in person this year, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then I mentioned, I have my own boutique change and transformation management consultancy, a lot of project and change around enterprise technology implementation. That's a little bit about me, Stephanie. I'm going to turn it over to you. You want to do a quick intro and we can get into the questions?
Sure. So a little background on myself. First and foremost, I'm a mom of a 2-year-old. She just turned 2 a few weeks ago, which is super exciting. First time planning a real birthday party because last year with the pandemic, we couldn't have one. So that was new. But aside from my little one, I am an Entrepreneusta and I own a couple of businesses. The first is called Socialfly, which is a full service social media marketing and influencer agency. And then also have a media company and community called Entrepreneusta, which is for women founders and leaders looking to grow and scale their businesses. And the other company I'm involved in is called Marked, which is an app for parents to be able to buy and sell baby and kids gently used items. So I'm sure we'll get into it as we're chatting. I can share kind of the origin stories of how everything came to be, but super excited to be here with everyone today and always open to connecting after this as well. So never hesitate to reach out to me by email, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm all over social media and happy to connect. So thank you for having me.
No, great. Yeah, so, let's get into it. You mentioned Entrepreneusta, Marked, and Socialfly. What do you think the biggest challenges facing leaders today, finding yourself in those leadership positions?
Yeah, and I think it really depends on, what stage of the business that you're in as a leader, and some of the things that really have affected us, especially over the past year and a half, are, adapting to working remotely. So if you are a leader in a business where you're now working remotely, really pivoting and figuring out how to make the workplace and the virtual workplace not only the most, efficient, but also a great experience for your employees. So that's something that is super important. And as I mentioned, my 2-year-old, she's knocking on the door right now to come in. I told my husband I'm doing this for the next hour. So the next thing that I think is really affecting so many leaders now, and really everyone, and we'll mention this as we were chatting before this started, is burnout. So everyone is just facing so much right now, especially with the pandemic over the past year. And for those of us who are working from home and managing families, it's a lot. And we're seeing, a lot of burnout with team members, and being able to be sure that you're there for your employees and providing the right tools and resources is something that's extremely important. And then the third, and this is something I'm experiencing right now, is actually raising money. So in my first 2 businesses, Socialfly and Entrepreneusta, we bootstrapped both of our businesses. But in my third business, Market, the app, we found we have to be able to raise money to be able to scale the way that we want to for our business. And it's super challenging to raise money. And even with all of the, resources and connections that I have, it takes a lot of time to be able to raise money, and you have to be able to network. And it's a lot harder to do that, over the past year and a half, not being able to meet people in person. So it's definitely a different pitch when you're presenting over Zoom versus if you were in person. So those are, I would say, 3 of the big challenges that we've seen, and I've seen personally for leaders and myself over the past year.
Yeah, that's great. Working remotely, dealing with burnout and raising capital, networking to raise capital, and doing that virtually as well. Across that, is there like a characteristic that you bring in to having those capabilities or skills? Is there something you live by that comes to mind? Maybe there's one characteristic you believe every leader should possess.
Absolutely. I would say it's resilience.
Okay.
And I just feel like the characteristic of being able to be resilient is so important for every leader, because things are always going to come up in business, and you have to be okay with the challenges and the hard times and be able to deal with them and move forward and still maintain a positive attitude and outlook, even when times are tough. And you have to really have that resilience and that, gusto in you to be able to keep going. And a mantra that I always live by, especially if I have a hard day, is tomorrow's a new day. We get to start over tomorrow. And we're lucky that we get a new day tomorrow, because some people don't have tomorrow. So again, just having resilience, having a positive attitude and outlook, and being able to always look forward and have a path forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Speaking of resilience, how has any of the 3 companies operated during the pandemic? What's been challenging, or in what areas have you been surprised, whether Marketed, Entrepreneusta, or Socialfly?
Yeah, so I'll share a little story of something that happened with Socialfly when we pivoted our business and started working remotely. So we all remember, March 2020, the middle of the month, we're all trying to figure out what to do. Are we going to, keep going into the office? Do we start working from home? Everything was so confusing. And of course, myself and my business partner, Courtney, like so many other business owners, thought, okay, everyone work from home for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll see what happens. And that 2 weeks turned into forever. So we, pivot the business, we close the physical office, we have our whole Socialfly team start working remotely. And we quickly realized there were a lot of challenges and, logistical things we had to figure out, from IT solutions to keeping the team extremely engaged. And, Courtney and I, and, if you get to know the 2 of us, you'll see like we're we love to be in front of the team. We like to be talking to everyone and engaging with everyone. And we're on Zoom conversations like this in our Monday morning team meetings. And we have 30 people on the Zoom. And we got off one of these Zoom meetings on a Monday morning. I think it was in April. And Courtney calls me and we're like, we need to fix these Zoom meetings because it's awkward. There was silence. Like we would ask a question, how was everyone's weekend? Everyone's on mute. No one wants to come off mute and talk. I'm like, this can't be. We have to make these Zoom meetings better. Courtney was like, what if we make these like flashcards that people can hold up so they can be more engaged in the meeting? They don't have to come off mute, but it can get people like excited on the Zoom. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's make them. So we message our head of creative at Socialfly. We tell her this idea. We design these cards, which I'll show them to you now.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, look at that.
We designed these cards. So pick me, our favorite, you're on mute, thumbs up, thumbs down. There's a pack of 20, there's a pack of 20 of them. And now we have many more and you can customize them. So we make these cards, we send them to our entire team at Socialfly, and our meetings start to get better. And we have a lot of friends who are business owners. So we start showing these to our friends who are business owners. They're like, we want these for our team. We're like, great. They're like, you should set up we should set up a website. This is a business now. So what do? I didn't mention this business. We have another business now called hellodigicards.com because all of these companies wanted to start ordering these cards to keep all of their remote teams engaged. But they really helped because now our team is like excited to start using these cards. Everyone's interacting again. And it just made everything so much more fun. So yeah, David's got his there.
Right, and that took off. So that was a surprise, just to have these cards and have employees use them. That's great.
Yeah. And now it's another side little business. But what we've learned in business is you delegate to really great team members or you hire new team members. So we have someone that we brought on to help run that little business now too.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, that's a great story. And that's
it actually is. I'm going to interrupt for just a quick second.
Sure.
So Deepak, I can use this one if you guys can see this.
You have your digital background on, so it's hard to see. You have to turn off your
5 minutes left. Okay. That's interesting. I think that's great. That's a good segue to the next question. How do you feel you and your companies, whether Socialfly or even this new business, will emerge on the other side of this pandemic, which is still going on?
I mean, thank goodness everything has been going extremely well in all of our businesses. I will share, back March and April of 2020, I was terrified. I mean, I was thinking like many, the world is ending. All of our businesses are going to go under. On the Socialfly side, when everything first happened, March 2020, we had clients that were pausing budgets and clients that wanted to end contracts. And it was very scary. That has it quickly rebounded because in the business we're in, of course, and our social media agency, social media was really like the only way to be able to reach people. No one was meeting in person anymore. So we quickly started, having so many inquiries and new business leads and new clients that we're signing. But from a, operations perspective and productivity perspective, and in terms of just how, we spend the money that the company earns, I mean, we are more profitable now because we've streamlined operations. We are able to hire people from all over. We don't just have to hire people who are in New York City. And we've streamlined all of our operations with our softwares and IT solutions. So we're in actually a much better position now than we were in, February 2020.
Yeah, no, that's another great segue. Like, what are the most important decisions do you make as a leader, let's say at Socialfly, for example, because it sounds that way?
Yeah, I mean, every decision is obviously important. And I will share on the Socialfly side of the business. So we've actually scaled myself out of the day-to-day operations of Socialfly. I'm focused on Entrepreneusta and on market, and Courtney's focused on Socialfly and DigiCards and another project that she's launching. And that's how we've been able to be great business partners. We divide and conquer because and with Entrepreneusta, we launched during the pandemic our membership community and our .com website. Entrepreneusta really just started as a side project, helping women founders and leaders with our podcast. And then because of everything that happened with the pandemic, so many women were reaching out to us and needed more help and advice and structure. And that's when we launched our .com and our membership community, which has been going really well. Wait, what was the other part of your question? Now I forgot.
No, that's great. I mean, just like moving away from Socialfly for a second, what are some of the important decisions you would make for either Entrepreneusta or marketing, for example?
So who you hire is so important.
Okay.
And the talent and the people that you bring on your team, because you bring on, one person, and I'm sure we've all experienced over the years, like working with a coworker who was negative or not a good fit for the team, and it can bring down your whole team. So who you hire is just so important. And of course, when you hire that person, something that that took us many years to learn. So with Socialfly, we bootstrapped our agency. We never raised any money. And we always hired, it was, myself and Courtney. And then as we were able to hire, we mostly hired like entry-level talent, back in the early days, the first 3 years in business.
Sure.
And what we learned over the years is, had we been able to invest in more senior level talent earlier, we actually probably would have grown even faster. But we didn't have the money or the resources to do that because we bootstrapped. But we've seen now over the years, when we were in a position to hire senior level talent, the difference it makes to be able to really help scale the organization. So who you hire is definitely extremely important when you hire them. And then of course, all of the tools and softwares and solutions to help with efficiency in your business. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's good to get your perspective, like as an experienced leader. Thinking about Entrepreneusta, how has that network helped you grow as a business owner?
Oh my goodness. So I'll share the backstory on Entrepreneusta. I just alluded to it before. So with the growth of Socialfly, what happened over the years, we were featured on the Inc. 5000 list a few years in a row. We started receiving all of these awards for the campaigns that we were running for our clients. And we started to get so many inquiries and outreach from women founders and leaders who wanted to go out to coffee with myself and Courtney, wanted to pick our brain, really wanting to hear how we were able to grow and scale our agency. And what you'll learn about the two of us is we're both the type of people that like to help absolutely everyone. But we started to realize that if we were to go out to coffee with every single person that reached out to us, we would never have time to run our core business. And at the time it was just Socialfly. So we started thinking, how can we help as many women as possible and not just tell our story over and over again over coffee, but tell all of these stories of these incredible women founders and leaders that are growing and scaling these businesses. And that was our aha moment, like, oh, we should start a podcast. We'll share all these stories. So we launched our podcast, which is called Entrepreneusta, in November of 2018. So a few years ago now. And it really just took off from that first episode. And I think it grew for a few reasons. And I joke about the first one. We run a marketing agency. So of course we knew how to market our podcast, but really it was the stories that we were sharing, the content we were sharing. People wanted to consume this content. They wanted to share it with others, and they were inspired by hearing all of these stories. So the first year of Entrepreneusta, the podcast, it really was just the podcast. All of 2019, we released a new episode every week. Wow. We were growing our social communities. And then, as I mentioned last year, when everything happened with the pandemic, we were getting so many messages from women that needed help, just restructuring their business and pivoting. We were getting outreach from women who had to leave their jobs to stay home with their children and they wanted to start something. We were getting outreach from women who lost their jobs and wanted to start a business. And we realized at that point, like, we've already built this community. We need to help all of these women. We can't leave them hanging. So that's when Courtney and I decided to divide and conquer, which is what we do best. And we decided I would focus on building everything out with Entrepreneusta into an actual business, not just a podcast, but a full business and community for these women with the best tools and resources. And Courtney would continue to focus on growing and scaling Socialfly.
Yeah, it sounds like you picked a really good partner. We should have had her here also. That's a good segue. The next question, talking about your network and Entrepreneusta, how do you recommend our audience here make meaningful business connections?
Yeah, well, of course, join our community. And we're always making introductions and having events similar to this, where we have learning events every single week. We have networking events every single week, and women will come and network when it makes sense for their schedule. And then we also have a private chat community so everyone can connect there. It's really hard right now because there are not a lot of in-person events right now. So we really wanted to create this really tight-knit, close community, and we've essentially opened up our network, my network and Courtney's network, to all of these women that we've built over the past 10 years. So if someone needs, a recommendation for an IT service or, an HR solution or tool, we're sharing and giving access to all of the tools and business solutions that we've used to grow our business. We're making introductions to everyone in our network. I would say the best thing people can do, regardless of joining our community or not, is just reaching out to people and using platforms and tools like LinkedIn and trying to start conversations. And always remember to give. One of the first organizations I ever joined when we started Socialfly was called BNI, which is Business Networking International, if anyone's familiar with BNI. And their whole motto is givers gain. And I remember when I first joined their organization, I'm like, oh, it just speaks to me because I just love to help and connect and give. So when you do connect with others, seeing like what you can do to help others, and everything will always come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a bit of a leap of faith, right? To believe in that motto and to see it happen for yourself. One more question. This one's a little out of the blue. What's one of the biggest IT challenges you faced, and how did you handle it? You have so much rich history to pull from. Yeah.
We had a major IT challenge when we started working remotely because we had an IT provider. He would come into our office and help with everything. And, everyone's, hardwired in the office, but now we're all working remotely and we had nothing, we didn't have anything centralized for people to be able to work from home. So we started looking for IT solutions and vetting different companies. And we ended up hiring a company called Electric. I don't know if you're familiar with that company, Electric IT. And they've been able to help us streamline everything. And they integrate with Slack. So our team members can just Slack their team if they're having an issue with their computer or any of their hardware, because it used to be people would actually come into our office and then we would have to call, our IT provider. And now everything is just done remotely with this IT service. So that's helped us a lot.
And are you doing anything live with Entrepreneusta?
Say that one more time. Anything what?
Are you doing anything live? Like, are there any live virtual events with Entrepreneusta?
Oh, yes. Well, we do live virtual events. We do a few every single week. We also do LinkedIn lives. We do Instagram lives.
Oh, great.
We do Clubhouse events. Oh, yeah.
David, that's something we should think about. There's LinkedIn Live, right? We're not as hip, and I know you're a leader with some of the social media, so I appreciate you sharing it with the audience.
LinkedIn
here.
Live. I just did one today, actually, with Elizabeth
LinkedIn
Edwards.
Live, that's neat. I mean, I think part of the challenge, at least what I find, is a lot of the features and functions for these platforms change regularly, and you're kind of like, I see some heads nodding. I work in the adoption space, so you're kind of unaware about these changes and how to use them to your advantage. How do you stay? I want to know. I mean, how do you stay on top of all of this, all of these changes, and how do you, and then obviously using it to your advantage? Is there like some strategies or tips or some things you do markedly different to stay on top?
Well, our Socialfly business is social media. So we have to be on top of everything. We're preferred marketing partners with all of the social platforms. So for example, Facebook, we're a preferred marketing partner. We work directly. We have a Facebook rep. We work directly with them. So we're getting all of the information and announcements essentially ahead of time before things go live. So we always know what's coming. And then we're sharing that information with our community and our audience. So we have an email list for Socialfly. We have our Instagram and, LinkedIn and social channels, and we're blogging about updates and what's coming. So everyone who's subscribed to our list and to our social channels, everyone can stay up to date on what's happening because we're always sharing all of that information through all of the Socialfly channels.
Yeah.
So definitely being a preferred partner of these social platforms helps because we find out about everything ahead of time and then share it. But of course, aside from our Socialfly website and blog, there's other platforms like TechCrunch and Mashable. And I mean, there's tons of other sites that are great to subscribe to as well to see what's going on.
Yeah. So basically channel partners and then just staying educated in the tech space.
And using the platforms too.
Yeah. Right. Best way to do it is to just get in there, roll up your sleeves and give it a go. This has been great. I want to turn it to the audience. What are some of the questions that we have, David, for Stephanie? How can we, get the audience to ask some questions and pick Stephanie's brain?
I'll just quickly start out with Margareta McBean.
Yeah, I see that.
And a question that I asked too, and I think that was sort of off of my question. So my question was, how are the private equity or angel investing firms and markets, how's that climate right now for you as a woman entrepreneur? And then Margareta jumped in and said, which do you use more, investing companies or qualified individual investors?
Do you mean specifically for the fundraise that we're doing right now for Market?
Yeah, as an example, because you'd mentioned at this point for that, you were looking to raise money right now.
Yep. And I've learned so much about fundraising over the past few months just by going out and doing it. I've interviewed so many founders over the years who've raised money, and I've interviewed VCs, and until you go out and do it, it's a different experience, but learning from people is definitely helpful. With our round, so we're raising $1 million round. We've raised about 400,000 so far. And all from angels, but some of our angels are actually VCs that couldn't get involved in this round yet because it's too small. They want to when we go out for our seed, but they came in as with their own money as angels to start.
Okay, great.
Interesting. The angel market tends to be dominated, and I'm going to throw this out and we all know this. The angel investor market, the equity markets in general, there are a lot of what we call pale stale males who dominate that business. Have you found it increasingly easier or more difficult as a woman to raise money? As you know, you haven't. I guess this has all happened post-pandemic, right? That you're doing this.
Yep, everything has been.
What's been your experience so far? What sort of treatment have you been getting? Are there challenges? Anything that you would care to share about the process?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of people know the stats that are out there, that it is more difficult for women to raise money. My co-founder is a man, so it's the two of us going out together. But and I haven't received any of those direct questions that you hear about from investors, because a lot of the people that we're speaking to, we know. I can see, other questions about, I've heard of women being asked, how are you going to be able to manage this with a child, or if people are thinking about having other children. I've heard all of these stories before, and I'm just I can't even believe people are asked that. I feel like I am the most efficient person, and I'm able to do even more now that I'm a mom, because everything is really scheduled, and somehow we make it all happen. I would just say, in general, it's the best thing that I've learned, and this is what we're doing now with the remainder of our fundraise that we didn't do in the beginning, is we didn't set a time frame. We didn't create enough urgency when we initially set out to fundraise, because it was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. So we'll just see how this goes. We should have said, we're doing our fundraise in this 2-month period. When we speak to investors, we need to let them know that this is when the money has to be in by. You're either in or you're out. If you make it too open-ended without urgency, then it doesn't create that, excitement and demand. So that's something we've definitely learned.
And we're a small group here, so I suggest just chime in and ask Stephanie some questions.
We have comments from David and from Lisa, so if you would
please feel free to reiterate them. Margarita, go ahead.
Okay, I asked that question. The reason why is that I am not a millionaire, just to disclaimer, but the underlying problem for a lot of businesses like yours and stepping off is that there's a gap between the venture capitalists who have billions with a B and people who would be willing to invest, but they're not qualified investors. And for those of you who don't know, you have to have, what is it, 250?
50.
Yeah, and whatever. And they actually may be able to do it, but based on what the IRS says. And it seems the ends don't end up justifying the means, or the means don't end up justifying the end. So I just figured, since you're somebody who's in the process of doing that, have you tried to use both when you say that you have people that you know, or going to a company is easier up front because you figure, okay, if they say yes, you have that, rather than going to individuals? But that said, here in New York City, I know people who've contributed to plays or whatever, where actually going to person ends up getting you more money than if you went to one place. So I'm just kind of interested, how have you evaluated that, and if so, what was your answer?
Yeah, I mean, we started mostly with our like direct contacts, people that I know, people that Ankur knows, and his wife Devyani. And now for the remainder of this round, we actually are partnering with this woman who specializes in helping people with fundraising and making introductions. And she's helping us now set up the structure to complete the rest of the round. I just heard about a company. I don't know if anyone knows it. We were just introduced to them yesterday, but we haven't had a call yet. It's a company called Republic. Have you heard of them? So we're gonna have a conversation with them and explore what that looks like. But essentially, I think it's a bit different from Kickstarter, but it essentially allows people
to take a cut. They take a cut. You do know
they take a cut, but it only ends up being like one line on your cap table instead of having like 500 people. Like let's say all of our we have over 40,000 people who have already downloaded our app, who use our app, and obviously we have a very big email list. Well, let's say everyone who already is using Market and excited about Market wants to become an investor. I believe, and this is my understanding, and we haven't had the call with Republic yet, that if we sent out an email to everyone and people wanted to become investors in Market, they could all become, investors in the company, but it would just be one line item on the cap table, I believe. But again, I haven't had the call with them yet.
Yeah, I get those emails about if you want to invest in, and there's usually a headline of what it is, and then you can click and go to your login page and see what the details.
Well, the thing is, if you read the fine print, you're not really investing, you're contributing.
Okay.
And there is a difference, and I don't want to take away from your presentation, but that is,
it must be legally or tax. They look at it differently. Anyway, I know some people don't even have a chance to introduce themselves. Joan, maybe you want to jump in. JB, Helen, Todd, Phyllis, welcome. You've come to a lot of our events. David, I think you still may have a question. What other questions?
No, I'm good. If we had a few other people who would ask questions, so if we can get to those questions. If you want to pose them to Stephanie, we'll do that, and then afterwards we can stay on, all of us, whoever would like to stay on.
Yeah, we
chat some more offline, and we can talk about. You can introduce yourselves.
I think David Matthews had a question.
Sorry,
yeah, David
Matthews had a question.
Sure, Dave.
You're on mute. Maybe pull up the mute card. There you go. Look at Stephanie. That's an easy sell.
There you go.
I'm going to put the code in the chat here.
Yeah, good idea.
I thought David read my question, which was just, I've noticed that a lot of colleges and universities have these new startup groups and entrepreneurial groups. And if you're an alumni, then you have an opportunity of getting angel investors from your alumni association. I don't know if anybody's tapped into that market. It's kind of new to me. I know I went to Cornell, so Cornell has that, and a couple other universities that I partner with.
I went to Cornell too.
So did I.
Oh, that's great. Wow. Look at that, a lot of alum. That's good. You get a discount.
I
Go ahead.
spoke with Trip Hammer, I think it was Trip Hammer Ventures, and they're actually very interested in market, but we're too early for them. They're also seed. And I feel like that's the hard part when you're early, even though we have, our app is out, we're about to launch our web app, we have 40,000 users or subscribers. When you're not raising that like $2 to $4 million round, a lot of these funds don't want to get involved until you're there. When you're at this pre-seed stage, it's a lot harder for some reason.
So Stephanie, actually, I'm not that familiar with the whole startup journey. Can you maybe just briefly walk us through how does that, like the seeding and like, what's involved with all that? Because I've never.
Yeah, that's a great question.
How much time do you have?
Right. What I guess, to Arwen's point, like, where do you start? What's the roadmap, and where do you want to end up?
Sure. So specifically with market?
That's a good example. Sure.
And I'll tell you how my business partner and I actually partnered together. So Ankur is Courtney, my Socialfly business partner. It's her former boss from American Express. So in January of 2020, my husband and I were out to eat with she was like 7 months old at the time. And we're talking about all of these items that we had for Molly in our apartment that we didn't need anymore, that were taking up all this space in our small apartment, her bassinet, this thing called a Mamaroo, the baby viewer, and all of these things. And they're in perfectly great condition. And I needed to get some other stuff. And my husband's like, let's get all this stuff out first. I'm like, well, what do we do with it? So I went on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. I'm like, wait a second, this is just not a good user experience for parents. This is not how we shop. This is not how we want to sell things. So I text Courtney. I'm like, Courtney, I have the best business idea, which is a conversation I feel like we're often sending to each other. And I tell her this idea. And she said, oh my goodness, my former boss at American Express, Ankur, he just reached out to me because he is developing this exact app right now. And he's looking for help with marketing. So long story short, Ankur comes into our Socialfly office right before the pandemic in February of 2020. And we spent some time together and some follow-up calls after, and realized that it would make sense for us to partner together. With his background in product and my marketing background, and both having the desire and passion to solve this problem, we realized it was a great fit as a business partnership. So Ankur was already developing the app. It was actually already launched in beta in New York City and was starting to take off organically just from his app that he was able to develop himself, and he bootstrapped the initial app. And then I joined and helped with the rebrand and marketing strategy. And then we started on the fundraising strategy, because we knew to be able to scale this type of business, we had to fundraise. It's not possible for us to be able to just continue to bootstrap, to be able to grow it to where it needs to be. So, again, having a business partner with opposite skill sets is extremely, extremely important, and probably like the best piece of advice I could give anyone, to be sure to, if you're going to partner with someone, make sure they have opposite skill sets and be sure your vision is aligned.
That's great. That's a great lesson learned. Lisa, tell us what's on your mind?
Well, I've become a big fan and follower of Arlen Hamilton at Backstage Capital, and she turned me on to all these different concepts of investing small amounts of money. For most of us, it's small hundreds, maybe a couple $1,000s into startups that are founded by women, people of color, LGBTQ, just people who are the least likely to get capital. And it's a really difficult time for most of them to raise capital. And I just learned an awful lot from her. I took a course with her recently, and I was exposed to so many different ways to do the investing, with just little amounts of money, but being able to participate in these startup businesses. And it's just a really great opportunity. And there's just lots of different places to follow. And I posted a number of them there in the chat. If you haven't come across some of these, but WeFunder, Republic, Backstage, they're all, they tend to focus on these smaller opportunities. So it's a way to get most of the population involved if they're interested in doing that.
That's awesome.
That's great. We have 5 minutes. I think I have a hard stop, but David, we'll continue with you guys if you want to stay on. Anyone else? Any other questions for Stephanie? I mean, we have a small group, so please just jump in.
I had a quick comment. Earlier in the conversation, Stephanie was talking about, who you align with as a partner and offering a different skill set. That's vital, because you don't want people who are parroting you all the time, and you want people who bring fresh ideas. And we all have different skills, and we can't be everything to everyone. So I think it's important to do that. You also mentioned, though, that who you hire is important. And I'd made a comment earlier. I'd made a comment earlier on, which was, again, it's more of a comment than a question, but when you hire, make sure that you're aligned, not just on the hard skills, but also on the soft skills, and align on your mutual expectations of each other. And, interesting, Gallup had done a study a few years ago and indicated that this is an amazing statistic. 1 out of every 2 new employees in a company is gone within the first year. And the reason is because, in a broad sense, it's a lack of communication. But if you delve down deeper into it, it's because they did not align on the expectations of one another. And so I just typed in a tool that I'm familiar of at the bottom that helps people align on their expectations, which leads to less churn and better hiring outcomes, because they've aligned on their expectations of one another. Soft skills.
Interesting. David, thank you for sharing. We've got a few more minutes. Helen,
David, not to make a marketing pitch, but I'm also aligned with a product called, by Telexis that does a similar thing in terms of the alignment. And you're right, it is critical to make sure there is that fit. And it's a very inexpensive tool. So if anybody's interested in seeing a pilot of it, I could make that happen.
Great.
Thanks. No, I think we're officially done. For those wrong, probably not the best word to use. We've concluded the fireside chat portion of the evening.
Right.
If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to jump in or reach out to Stephanie or any of us at BTGNY on LinkedIn or via email. And for those of you who can stay on, please do. I just realized my beer is downstairs. So it'll wait a little bit longer. I was happy to see Helen Todd here because we haven't spoken in a while. Is Helen still here? Let's see. Yes, she is. Hi, Helen.
She's on mute.
Yeah, she must be on mute, yeah. But for anyone who did not get a chance to introduce themselves up front, please do so now, and we can spend a few minutes on. If you can't stay, just wave. We understand. We will make the recording available to everybody, and we'll soon post it on YouTube, and you'll be hearing about it soon. So you can share on your social media and hopefully benefit from the conversations that we've had today.
Thank you, Stephanie, for doing this. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And it was so nice to meet everyone. Feel free to reach out, email me, Instagram, LinkedIn. If anyone is interested in market or knows anyone who would be interested in investing, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll send you the deck.
I will reach out to you very soon on that
meeting
score.
everyone. Bye,
Thank
Bruno.
All right, bye. Thank you for coming.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Stephanie. It was great.
Bye,
And I
Lisa.
think marketing is an awesome idea because there's such a huge market for, secondhand baby stuff. Because like you said, like some of this stuff is brand new, like especially when you're talking about these expensive strollers like Bugaboos and the other strollers of the world. I mean, those are expensive. You're talking about like $1,000 stroller. So
Yep. And those, do you know about the snoo? The snoos are like $1,500. It's this bassinet.
Oh, wow.
So when during the pandemic, we did a lot of surveys with our audience because we launched as just a peer-to-peer marketplace on the app as a beta, because we wanted it to have as much friction as possible to see how many people would download the app. It wasn't available on the website yet. It's still not on the website yet. We're launching that site soon. And the peer-to-peer app was taking off, but we surveyed everyone and we realized that there's so many uninitiated buyers. So parents who don't want to spend the time listing things on the app, they just want someone to pick up everything, sell it. They'll take whatever they can get for it. They just want it out of their apartment, out of their house. It's sitting in their garage. And the longer you have things sit, the less valuable it is, because newer models come out. So the faster you can get stuff out, if you don't need it anymore, the more valuable it is. So we launched a managed service in beta in New York called Market Renewed, where we pick up specific items, like the expensive high-end items. We clean and sanitize them. We sell it on behalf of the parent. So we've been doing that now for the past 2 months, and that has just taken off so fast. And these items, when we list them, the average selling time is 3 days. So if we list an item like these snooze they go for $1,500. We list it for $9.99. They sell right away.
Wow. That's
and they're
awesome.
clean and sanitized, and
That's a great idea, because I mean, as a parent, not everyone's gonna have time to take pictures, list it, communicate back and forth with sellers and meet the sellers. I mean, we all sold stuff like, Craigslist, and there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of work that you have to do. And especially being a parent most parents probably don't have the time to do that. And I think that's a great service that, you introduced.
Yeah. So we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've had friends actually, just one last thing. I had friends actually bought, like, let's say like a Bugaboo or something, and 5 years later, they sold it, but they actually either made money or didn't lose any money. It's just amazing how these things kind of hold the value. And then, they keep going up every year. So artificially, their value is going up every year.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy.
Anybody else? All right. I guess we can start the weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice to meet everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Great having you. As always. Yes. I got my cards here too. I have to find the right one here somewhere. Let's see. All right, let me see if I can top that. Well, here we go. I don't know if you could see this.
Yes.
Here we go. Stephanie, if you get a chance, this is my professional Zoom account. Can you stay on for a couple of minutes after people have signed off? I just wanted to bounce something by you.
Yeah, I just messaged you. Molly's like begging me to come out there right now, so I have 2 minutes.
That's fine. That's great. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend. And as I said, this is being recorded. Well, now I can turn it off. And